Is, okay, including the lag time? Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for June 23rd, 2020. Okay, first of all, per the General Assembly's approval of the Governor's amendments to the biennial budget, the governing body may now meet electronically without a quorum actually assembled in a single location and without the in-person governing body members voting on the participation of those who are remoting in. The following benchmarks for the meeting this evening have been met. First, the governor has declared a state of emergency for the current COVID-19 panic in accordance with Code of Virginia. Second, the declared emergency makes it impractical or potentially unsafe for the governing body to assemble in a single location, and guidance from state and federal government support this determination. Therefore, the governing body will be meeting with various members participating electronically through GoToMeeting. Third, the meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the governing body. Fourth, the governing body will make available a recording or transcript of the meeting on its website in accordance with Code of Virginia. Fifth, notice has been and will continue to be provided to the public using available methods. Lastly, we have made and will continue to make arrangements for public access through electronic means, including the ability to comment. Those participating electronically are Councilmember Miriam Machado, Councilmember Hector Sandemos, and Councilmember Hasib Javed, who will be joining us about 10 to 15 minutes into the meeting. Those participating in person are Councilmember Alana Mensing, Councilmember Donald Shoemaker, Vice Mayor Preston Banks, and Mayor Jeanette Burchell. We have before us an agenda. There are two additions to the agenda, which would be 8B, HVAC for Manassas Park Library, and 8C, Library Copiers. Are there any other adjustments to the agenda? None from city attorney?
Just what I had mentioned before, but I think we can wrap it.
That's already taken care of, yeah, okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstained, motion carries. We have an agenda. Please join us in a moment of silence, and Councilmember Shoemaker, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We can move on to public comment time. I believe we have, how many folks do we have signed up?
Just one person, Judith Molinelli.
Welcome, Ms. Molinelli.
Thank you.
Since you're going to be speaking, then I won't be reading the email that you sent. It's one or the other. So please state your name, your address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Is there permission to take this all back?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Judy Molinelli, 9209 Maple Street in historic Manassas. Thank you. And I got involved in Connor House, saving Connor House, because I founded a group in Manassas called Preserve Historic Manassas, and we have quite a large membership. People know about the work that we've done, which affected the comprehensive plan and saving the historic look of the old town, and therefore people from Manassas Park just assumed I was involved. I was contacted by quite a few people from Manassas Park about the fact that Connor House was going to be destroyed, planned to be destroyed by selling the property for the downtown development. And while they weren't necessarily opposed to the downtown development at all, they were very much opposed to not carving out a little space to save a National Historic Trust landmark. They all understood that the town, or most of them understood that the town didn't have enough money, but many of them felt that This was, as you know, sort of a slick move, because it was never mentioned in any of the materials that were used for work sessions or at any public hearings, the Connor House specifically. Since the Inside Nova article highlighting civic concern over Connor House, Manassas Park said it would work with anyone who wants to save it as long as there's no cost to the town, which is reasonable. And people contacted me, and they were surprised and upset to find an agenda item tonight that might give relic hunters the right to go and look for relics on the property. They're not sure if they're going to take bricks out of Connor House too, if they're going to sell pieces of that or what. And they were alarmed, and so I got a call about an hour and a half ago. I jumped out of the pool and got dressed and came down to express their concerns because they only just noticed it today. I heard that through a big grapevine of people that someone came forward who has property right next to Connor House who's willing to let it be relocated onto his or her land with no cost for buying the property, as long as, you know, it gets moved there. And I heard that despite this offer being made almost a week ago, I'm not sure because I don't know all the details. It is secondhand information, I acknowledge that. That nobody's gotten back to this guy. And because you have an agenda item tonight on Connor House, these people are shocked that you didn't include an agenda item about this new offer, especially since the city said they wanted to work with people to help save it as long as it wouldn't cost them anything. This is clearly relevant that someone's offered land very close, which also preserves the historic feel of Connor House because it's not that far away from where it originally was. And yet there's no discussion, but we can discuss relic hunters. So people are upset, and that's all I have to say. Except that I would like to see, when you discuss item 8A, that you disclose any information you have so that people can know if it's true or not about the property and all that.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments. This is unusual, but I would like to respond to what you said. I was totally unaware of the offer until I received your email. 4 minutes after your email came in, an email came in from Mr. David Wilmore, and I will read that also into the record.
Who is he? David Wilmore?
Well, let me read his...
He's the property owner.
He is the
owns
property owner.
here behind City Hall.
Oh, okay, so he must be the one that people know.
Okay, yes, and his email came in 4 minutes after your email came in. So let me go ahead and read his email into the record, ma'am. Dear governing body members, Connor House is part of our heritage. General Joe Johnston was a senior Southern commander. I beg your pardon?
Can you talk a little louder?
Oh, yes, certainly. Connor House is part of our heritage. General Joe Johnston was a senior Southern commander. Johnston and General William Tecumseh Sherman opposed each other throughout Georgia and the Battle of Atlanta, yet after the war became best friends. When Sherman died in February 1891, Johnston was one of Sherman's pallbearers in a cold rain. Johnston refused to don a hat out of respect for his friend Sherman. Johnston caught pneumonia at the funeral and died 2 weeks later. Connor House was Johnston's headquarters in 1861 and a hospital during both battles of Manassas. In today's fight to assert the Black Lives Matter, it is important to remember how two opposing generals reconciled and helped heal a nation. Lessons of the original conflict to provide to prove that Black Lives Matter are still relevant today. I own 5.5 acres of land, about 1,300 feet from the Connor House. My land will have 60,000 square feet of green space. The Connor House is approximately 1,000 square feet in size. I will donate a portion of my green space to relocate the Connor House if the governing body approves. I have been in contact with Bob Mack, a Virginia licensed historical preservation architect, about moving Connor House. He is of the opinion that it can be moved for a reasonable cost. Please read this letter into the record for tonight's council meeting. This email is from Mr. David Wilmore, and I don't believe that Mr. Wilmore lives in Manassas Park. He lives in Prince William County. So that was read into the record.
Can I add
Yes.
something?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so as the mayor stated, we did receive that email a few minutes after your email. So I have been meeting with Historical Society, so I'm not sure where the confusion is with the public. At the last meeting, I asked anyone who is interested in engaging on this issue of moving to the Connor House, please email me. If you go to our website, Government City Manager, you'll find my email address. I had a meeting last week with members of different historical societies as well to coordinate the plan to actually move the Connor House. So if you're interested, I will involve you in those discussions as well. And anyone you hear from in the community who's confused or doesn't understand what's going on, please, and they're interested in actually supporting this, please reach out to me, and I can actually facilitate that. So his property, Mr. Wilmore's property, is all the way back here. This is the current site of the Connor House. So it's still pretty far away. What we discussed with the Historical Society is potentially coordinating with the county to have it moved right across the street so it actually preserves the historical value. It wouldn't be in our city anymore. It would be potentially easier to have it moved there versus, you know, the longer, the farther away the move, the more risky it is. That's kind of, there would be their preference from a Historical Society standpoint for kind of where they would want it, because I guess there was some other historical relevant items that happen on the actual school property as well. So they would want to take that opportunity to kind of highlight that. But that's an ongoing conversation. I'm meeting with the developer again tomorrow to discuss this along with all the other components of Phase 4 as well. So again, anyone in the community, please, who's part of a historical society or wants to coordinate that, please work through the historical societies or reach out to me, because that's something we are trying to facilitate it. Again, we need the land. It's not necessarily the house that's the big issue here. So we are trying to coordinate that move of the Connor House, to a different location. If the county doesn't want to work with us on that here, then I mean we could certainly evaluate other properties in the city.
And I also have a question for City Attorney.
Sure.
The permission to relic hunt on the Connor House is not relevant to the movement of the house. Is that correct? That we have the right, the governing body has the right to grant permission to relic hunt regardless. Is that correct?
Yes.
According to city code.
You're absolutely free to put any restrictions on it that you want. I mean, it's just, it's prohibited unless the governing body authorizes it. So, when it comes time to vote on that, you can put any stipulations on there you want.
Okay. And I assure you, both relic hunters have decades of experience.
I noticed that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on, we have Fire Department grant opportunity.
Chief Soper, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Welcome, Chief Soper.
Thank you, Mayor.
Can you all see that? Well, actually, I think I need to share this. Yeah, you have to share. Give me 1 second.
Oh, thank you. I won't drop that again. Thank you.
Appropriate socially this way.
Yeah. Might need to wet my whistle.
Okay. Can you see that now?
I can, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, Chief.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body, staff, citizens. Back in February, I talked to the city manager about having the ability to apply for a safer grant, which is funded by FEMA. We talked about the possibility of doing it. We agreed to go ahead and apply for it. Again, that was back in February before the COVID recession hit us. So we'll go through the information slide one for you tonight. So just a quick update on the history of the grant within our city. The fire department applied for this grant twice. We applied for it back in 2006. We asked for 3 people. That grant was denied by FEMA So we reapplied back in 2009. This time we asked for 6 people. That one was approved. When it comes time to ask the government body to accept that award, we were actually in another recession back in 2009, so we were physically, financially unable to accept that award back then. So fast forward to 2020, and we're going to ask for this again. So what is the AIT Safer Grant? The Safer Grant was created to provide funds directly to fire departments interested organizations to help increase and maintain the numbers of training, frontline firefighter available in the community. The key is this right here. The goal of Safer is to enhance the local fire department's ability to comply with staffing, response, operation standards established by the NFPA 1710. So what is 1710? That's the standard for organization and deployment of fire suppression operations, emergency medical operations, and special operations to the public by a career fire department. 1720 would be for volunteer fire department. We'll go to the next one. Thank you. So how does AIT Safer Grant work? It is a highly competitive grant. It supplies roughly $350 million in awards. This year they narrowed it back down to $345 million. You'll see about 300 awards come out of it on an average year. I think last year they did make it up to 383 awards. The application period opened May 6th, and it closed on May 27th of this year. So it took a big team approach to get this thing on the ground. It required us to get a DUNS number, which we have all DUNS numbers in the city, a SAMS.gov, and a FEMA.gov account. So working with Tom and Patty, we worked this thing through March. We really didn't go headway with it. Then Chief Gilmer from the fire department got involved. He went back to the table with Tom and Patty, and the three of them really got this thing on the roll. We were approved with our account on May 22nd. So I started working around May 22nd, and it closed on 27th. So it was kind of a rush deal. So all the grants from FEMA will be announced by the end of their fiscal year, which will be September 30th this year. And usually they start awarding grants somewhere between December and June. So we can jump to the next one. So how does this work? The position will cover will be over a 3-year period. So the first 2 years, the federal government will cover 75% of the usual annual cost of the first year firefighter in the department. On the third year, that reduces down to 35% of the usual cost. So what is a usual annual cost? It's the base salary and standard benefit package for the personnel that you're hiring. So what I ran into when I tried to look at how benefits increase year to year, you wasn't able to do that. It had to be whatever the first year cost is going to be, you can use for 3 years. So, okay, next. So some of the things we talked about in the fire station about how this could really benefit the department and the city. It would definitely increase the staffing levels to recommended safe staffing levels. It will increase the service delivery for our citizens. It will allow for more career development opportunities for our fire and EMS employees. Currently with limited staff, they're not able to just take off and go training. It's going to help us save some money during our high staff retainment time frame, like we're currently in. It would definitely help us improve morale and safety while increasing the employees' faith in the city by making much needed improvements within the department. And I think the last is really critical. Okay, move forward with it. So how many FTEs are being requested? It was the financial impact. So the request would be 3 entry-level firemen, 3 entry-level personnel would be added to the existing personnel for staffing the fire rescue EMS units. This will bring us a lot closer to meeting NFPA 1710 and staffing standards. Where the NFPA 1710 staffing standards come into play is right here. In our recent ISO inspection, we get repeatedly indicated that the lack of sufficient staffing, outside training, and ladder truck services continue to hamper our ability to go lower than a 4. The lower you are on the 1 to 10 scale, the better your rating. Back in 2009, we went to a 4 from a 7, and you see in 2017, we did our last one, we remained a 4. We haven't had a chance to increase. The 2 things we get hit with the most are staffing, ladder truck services, and the ability to have a training facility within the city. So there's been no increase in FTEs within the fire and rescue department in nearly 10 years. I want to say it was somewhere around 2010 to 2012 when we added our last 3 employees. So it's been quite a while since we increased that. Next, please. So the financial impact is right here. This is what probably everyone's seeing. The cost of 1 firefighter medic entry-level position, salary benefits is $83,288. The current starting salary is $59,182. The benefits based off of FY21 rates would be $24,096. So the total cost for 3 FTEs per year for the city would be $249,864. So broken down over 3 years, if the grant request is funded, it would be a city cost the first year, $62,466. The second year for the city would be $62,466. The third year for the city would be $162,411.60. So that leaves the federal government to pay the first 2-year cost of $187,398, and then their third year was able to drop down to $87,452.40. So the total investment over 3 years for the city is $287,343.60, and for the federal government it would be $462,248.40. So that's the true savings to the city is roughly $462,100. So the total grant would be $749,592. So, okay, next please. So, as we talked about 2009, does the department have to retain the sacred funding position after the end of the grant? And the answer is no. After those 3 years, it's up to the city to say we can fund it or we can't fund it. So it would be up to the city manager to work with the director to try to find money to budget it, and then for the governing body to approve it year to year. So, okay. Next, please. So if we're awarded grant, what happens? Notice that the FEMA grant has been awarded and recorded in the system. E-grant will send us an award package that we will get the award package and provide it to the governing body and the city manager. The offer will remain on hold and be available for a maximum 30 days until the recipient either accepted or declines the award via the online e-grant system. So what that means is that from the day that they tell us that they're offering this award for 30 days to accepted. That's going to be key for when we decide what fiscal year we're going to hire these people in. It's a good possibility that if we're awarded this grant later, that we can push this back as far as FY22 starting period, not FY21. So it could be a FY21, 22, 23 grant, or it could be 22, 23, 24. So the period of the grant is going to be for 36 months, which is 3 years. The default of the 180-day recruitment period begins when the FEMA approves the application from the award. The 36-month period of performance automatically starts after the 180-day recruitment period, regardless of whether the recipient has successfully hired the requested firefighter. If the recipient is able to hire the safely funded firefighter through the 180-day period, the period will begin on time. So what that says is basically that once they award the grant, we're given 180 days to recruit those 3 individuals and to hire those individuals. This comes in key where we just talked about the fiscal years. As I was talking to the city manager earlier, we would like to be able to take this to FY22 if possible. So I know that there's 5 rounds of grants when they dish this out. The first one usually is delivered in December, and then followed January, February, and June. So if we get if we're lucky to get our one, we get it in January through June, we'll definitely be able to push it to FY22. So, and then yeah, that was in the PowerPoint.
So
Okay.
this,
This is kind of an example of the kind of grants that are available out there that we started talking about last week to help us do things at a significantly discounted rate. Again, we looked at this before COVID-19, so things have changed since then, but there might be opportunities. The chief's point about the FTE, so we've remained at 24 FTEs. Remember, for the actual firefighters and fire medics, we had that overage hire that was approved a couple years ago, if you all remember that, where we said because we never actually get to 24 FTEs, we're usually at 22 FTEs on average. So if you authorize us to do an overhire, we were hoping to push up that average to around 23 at least to get us closer to the 24. So as a worst case, we may be able to look at this thing and say, okay, let's officially raise this FTE to 25 and use some of this grant money to cover that 25th position, so we can potentially get some savings if we do it that way. But either way, this is an example of if we're ever going to ramp up staffing at the fire department to get there, this is how we would do it, at a severely discounted rate. So, but as a worst case, again, we may be able to use this for that 25th position to save the city some money in the short run. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Soper. That was an excellent presentation.
Again, no actions expected right now. That's why it's just an information item for you to be aware of.
Right. Let's see if there's any questions. Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Councilmember Sendejas?
I'll say thank you for all the hard work, and hopefully we can get this grant. Thank you.
Councilmember Javed, have you joined us?
He did. I saw him up there.
You did? Do you have any questions?
Let me then show here.
Are you there, Councilmember Javed? Okay.
Hello,
Question?
can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was on mute. But I do have a question. Is our fire department considered to have nonprofit status?
No. We're government.
Because some of these grants are available, I think, would have to have.
It depends how they it depends how they define nonprofit, but most of the time governments are not classified as nonprofits. The volunteer fire associations can sometimes qualify for nonprofit. It just, again, each grant is going to be different in how they define nonprofit. But this one, Chief Soper, correct me if I'm wrong, this is for governments specifically as well.
Correct. They have a piece in here for both volunteers and career fire departments.
I see. Okay, excellent.
Okay. Thank you. Questions or comments here?
Yeah. Do we know what happens if one of the new employees were to not last the 3 years or to leave out in between in that period?
I believe that what we do is we replace that employee within 3 years, and we pick up their salary until the end of the grant is over.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
What would additional firefighters get us? Because you're saying with the ISO, they want more staff. What does that give us? What does it get us in terms of what the 3 new people?
So currently, we're running three personnel on our fire chiefs. ISO is asking us, or it's mandating that you require 4 personnel on a fire apparatus. Currently, with our staff, we don't have that ability. All of our partners around the region, they have that ability to run 4 people, which makes the job a lot safer for the personnel on the truck, and it also makes it a lot better job for the citizen.
Chief Soper, can you discuss how the ISO rating benefits our residents?
Sure. Give me 1 second. Hold the document. So, I was talking about the community every 3 to 5 years. Now, I will tell you that they skipped around a lot in the past, and they hit Manassas Park in 2009, they came back in 2017. I thought we would increase our rating, we didn't. So what the ISO does, they'll come out and they'll rate your fire department. They'll also rate your water system. They'll rate the communications department. At this time, currently, we're Prison County that rated them, and then they base all the scores to give the fire department rating, and then they base your insurance rates for your businesses and your homeowners off that score. So the lower the score, the better homeowners insurance you're going to get with the rating.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much, Chief. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving on to, there are no recognitions. Moving on to consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of amendment to the city attorney contract and approval of the amended FY 2020 city holiday calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed, abstained, motion carries. Okay. Okay, moving on to unfinished business. 7A is the extension of performance agreement for the Palisades.
Calvin and Nikki.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is Nikki. I'll take it from here, and Calvin or Dean can jump in if it's needed. This is an extension request for the performance agreement for the Oxford Palisades apartment. They are seeking a 6-month extension to December 26, 2020. They did have one last year and granted a year extension. At that time, they were going through litigation. The commercial portion of the property and the residential part of the property are owned by 2 different entities. They were in litigation, but they have come to agreement earlier this year. And as part of that, the proposal is to really divide the development into 2 phases. Phase 1, which is the residential component, which of course is the Palisades apartments, that is already complete. And then the second phase will be the commercial portion. The commercial part of the property will have to submit a new site plan. And this is really to have Oxford try to finish up the development and get released from the bonds and any kind of other responsibilities related to site development. As part of this revision, they're submitting a site plan revision. They will be completing the pathway, the pedestrian pathway that runs from Digital Drive to Railroad Drive, and they'll also be having easements around the retaining walls that were of concern. Staff is recommending approval for a 6-month extension. We believe that Oxford can finish the improvements related to the revision in that time frame. They have submitted the revision. This is actually the second submission that I'm working on. The comments are fairly minor, so that should be approved fairly soon. And so they can, once that's approved, they can start the improvements to the trail and finish up and hopefully be released of their bonds. And then for the second phase of the commercial property, again, they would have to submit an entirely new site plan, and then any improvements on the commercial property would be the responsibility of the site developer for the commercial property, which I assume is the property owner, but at this time, they haven't submitted anything, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mickey. Councilmember Machado, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, maybe how long is this pedestrian path?
Well, I don't have the exact length in feet, but it runs, it really is supposed to be a pathway that connects Digital Drive to, essentially you end up at the VRA station parking lot or close to it. So whatever the width is between Digital and Railroad, and it's supposed to be kind of a cut through, if you will, for residents to the VRA station. So sorry, I'd have to get back to you on that exact length.
I'm gonna.
There's probably close to, say, 1,000 feet that were unfinished. They will have to do some adjustments to the actual length that's required to finish. It may need to change. Through what you're seeing on the image as a Palisades circle, the path is completed along that retaining wall. It extends down essentially about to right there where the mouse was. That section that he's hovering over is not completed. The portion that is above that between the developed Palisades Residential and Railroad Drive may need to be adjusted. So that entire empty parcel, the path along that portion is sort of up for grabs, and they need to be reconstructed in its entirety. But the path does travel behind Palisades Court between the point at Park Station and Palisades, and extends all the way from Digital to Railroad Drive.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up, Councilmember Machado?
Is this path to be completed by December?
Yes, correct. That will be part of this phase and the extension request. So we're hoping that will all get taken care of before the deadline of December 26th.
Mayor, if I could just chime in real quick.
Yes.
So I pulled up the plan that they agreed on, and it looks like about 50 to 60 feet is what they're going to be working on to complete the trail. So if you walk over there at Railroad Drive, you can see where it kind of stops, and there's just a hill there. That's going to be, it's going to be completed in the same style as previously.
Okay. Does it?
We didn't wait for that. They have to agree to extend the wall. As you know, there's been litigation pending on the wall where they're located. The completion of the wall really depended upon that litigation to be settled, and so they have reached a settlement agreement. As a separate part of that, they have what they call the site plan agreement, which is what I have. I've been given a copy of, and I'm actually going to meet with Mr. Frank Barros and Haslam tomorrow to kind of go over this and see how we can move this thing along. But yeah, we didn't wait, we had nothing to do with how to move this thing along, other than just providing them a way to get off bond. And this is why we're asking for an extension, is because we keep saying we're real close, but this time we really are real close.
I concur with Dee, yes, this time we're really close. So.
Okay.
And they've actually submitted the site plan revision this
There's a
time.
issue that complicates that 60 feet of path, which is why has not been a simple thing for Oxford to come in and simply complete the path. If they were to attempt to complete the path, as it is right now, they would most likely have to create a set of stairs, which would then require handrail, guardrail. These things were not depicted on the site plan. The drastic grade change was not anticipated at the end of the wall. So there's some site plan issues there that have sort of left this path with nowhere to go until the actual grade is changed. And the grade is modified by either an extension of the wall or a regrading of the proposed site. So it's a little more than just 60 feet of throwing down some stone. They have to figure out how the remainder of the path will actually make grade without requiring a full set of steps, handrail, guardrail.
Okay. Councilmember Machado, do you have another follow-up?
Yes, for the residential part, is everything completed or spending?
I know that everything is complete, even the landscaping has been in for over a year, and actually, there is more they planted more landscaping than was actually on the approved plan. So, Calvin, do you concur that everything is complete on the residential side?
So on the residential portion of the acreage, the planned site work is completed. The major issue is that the actual, the shared underground stormwater facility that you see on that bare piece of land where the commercial piece is, there is an underground treatment facility there that's shared by the residential and the commercial. And because the commercial does not currently drain to it, the commercial site is not finished out. That's been one lingering issue that they're trying to resolve through the site plan submission, is how the use of that underground stormwater can be temporarily separated so that the residential component can be released completely from the structure is in the ground. It's known to function for the residential, but it's not serving its intended purpose per the site plan until the commercial piece is finished. So it's sort of a last loose end that needs to be tied up through a site plan revision.
Okay. Councilmember Sendejas, do you have any comments or questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Okay. Comments or questions here?
I have one question. This doesn't hurt us in terms of getting commercial on the piece as we promised 8 years ago, is that correct?
This actually moves us forward to do that. They need to settle all this, get off bond so that the commercial owner can do his own thing.
This has been going on for so long. I remember the very first meeting after our election in 2016. We actually was one of these extensions. So literally that was the Wednesday after the Tuesday we were elected, we went into closed session. It was an extension for Oxford. At that point it was Oxford, I guess it was. So we're now in 2020 and we have yet another extension. I'm just trying to make sure that we're actually moving forward, because this will take us to 4 years at least.
Took a while to get that settlement.
I'm just concerned because this has been going on, and the approval of this development was 8 years ago. So and we were promised the commercial for the approval of the project, and we got the residential, no commercial, and I want to make sure that we actually get the commercial and its quality for the city, and that this moves us forward.
Yeah, it does. I mean, until they settled their issues, nothing was going to happen there.
So this is the legal solution to allow them to go ahead now and move forward. We still have constraints from a commercial standpoint. I think that development was a spec development. I think what we're doing here, phase 3, will certainly help, but that's something, once the owner can actually do something with this, then I'm going to engage with them and see kind of what it is that we can actually do to properly integrate it to the rest of the downtown plan as well. But again, remember, we don't have we don't want to oversaturate the market also with retail, so we need to think of other creative solutions maybe for that site.
And something to keep in mind also, the proffers currently require a commercial building of a certain size. It's going to be very difficult for them to build that on here because those walls were built into the commercial site. That was what the litigation was all about. So there's going to have to be a proffer amendment application coming forward as well.
What can you say, what was promised, was it 20,000 or 22,000?
22,750.
It's on the cover sheet.
I see it, thank you. I just want to make sure, so that was what was originally approved back when the
Right.
whole development was approved.
And they have to have a minimum of that right now, the way the proffer reads. So they're going to have to come forward with a proffer amendment whenever they figure out what they want to do there. Most likely. I mean, it's possible they could put 22,750 on there, but not in the current configuration that was previously shown to the governing body.
Or they do 2 stories in order to fit that on the property.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of options. So, I mean, I'm not saying they definitely are going to have to come back with a proffer amendment, but it's likely they will. And it's mainly because of the parking requirement.
Just remember also that these 2 properties are owned by the same commercial developer, and they're also part of the properties.
They're the second phase of the original Palisades development.
We have to sit down with them and really plan this out.
We
But I
will.
also just ask that we all keep an open mind.
This is phase 1 of 2, right?
What's that?
Phase 1 of 2.
Right. There's 2 phases of this, yes, exactly.
Again, with the commercial limitations, unless we find some other creative solutions, I think this would be, we have our Signal Hill Park here,
Mhm.
and right now it doesn't really properly connect.
Right.
I think that's one area that we're going to build now more residential units. We don't have a lot of green space here. Of course, we have Williams Park, but if we can still facilitate, there's a lot of dog owners in this area, right?
Mhm.
Kind of access to Signal Hill Park, so there's going to be, I think, ongoing deliberations about what can be done with these properties, but I want to make sure we can plan that out properly, so I do want to meet with, of course, it's their property, they have the right, they can just go ahead and build the commercial per the property, but Dean's Point, it's going to be difficult for them to do that on this site, so they're going to have to come back to us in the future, unless they can fit something like your point, 2 stories, still get the square footage. Fine, they built the commercial, now it's not really much of our concern, is that we don't want a ton of speculative development, but I will be engaging with them and coming up with, ideas for what can happen.
We will have the state house on this picture,
Right.
on north of the Yappy Cutter, yeah.
And that's a different owner.
Right, but there will be addition, we've already approved that, and that will be built there too, so that also changes
Correct.
from when they first brought the proposal forward.
And they had the business already lined up for that one, so that was a little bit more critical.
Okay.
But if that's successful, that'll certainly help this out as well.
Okay. Preston, you look puzzled. Do you have a question?
Question.
Yeah.
So if we approve this 6 months extension of the performance agreement and the work is complete, the owner takes over the commercial site, is it possible that the owner can, at the owner's initiation, ask for a rezoning? Or is that stuck as commercial?
Well, you can always get a rezoning.
Mhm.
So you can't stop someone from applying.
Mhm.
But you have proffers on there. You're not obligated to
Right.
remove those proffers at that point. So it has a different equation comes into play when somebody has proffers on their property, mainly because it would impact the other properties that were approved at the same time.
Correct.
So, when this thing was approved, you had the residential and the commercial in the first phase, and then we had additional commercial on the other side of the road just to make sure that the overall project met the requirements of the zoning ordinance.
Mhm.
Now, we've changed the zoning ordinance requirements since then for the PUD and the MUD. So I'm not sure if it would still qualify on its own right now anyway. So you can't, you wouldn't be able to go ahead and allow a rezoning somewhere that caused another portion of the original rezoning to go out of compliance unless there was a waiver that they applied for at the same time. So it'd be very hard for them to get a rezoning there if doing so would cause the residential piece to be out of compliance with the zoning ordinance.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question? Okay. So the staff recommendation is that the governing body extend the expiration date of the performance agreements for the Palisades Site Plan SP number 13-03 by 6 months to December 26, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I've got to make one point, if I may. We can't forget an important goal also to get the sidewalks completed on Manassas Drive, both sides here.
I'm sorry, what?
Sidewalks.
Sidewalks,
Both
okay.
sides, so whatever's going to happen here again, there's a lot of negotiating that needs to happen, but we need to kind of remind ourselves kind of what are our interests that we want to accomplish. I know this is very early on, but I just want to start putting this on your radar.
Absolutely.
Fully sidewalk.
Yeah, or can we do shared use path, like the wider ones, the paved ones?
We can look at different options again. It's just, again, keeping back, we want to create some additional amenities for what's happening on this side as well, and connectivity to this massive park that we have over here, Signal Hill Park, that's a great amenity for our community, and just building those additional connections as well, and our downtown as well.
Okay, moving on to 7B. Adoption of fiscal year 2021 tax and fee rates. Public hearing having been held on June 2nd. I can go ahead and read out the rates. It's flat. There are no changes, but I will read them for the benefit of the folks at home. Real estate tax remains the same at $1.55 per $100 valuation. Personal property tax remains the same at $3.50 per $100 valuation. Machine and tool tax remains the same at $3.50 per $100 valuation. Stormwater management fee remains $146.18 per ERU annually. Garbage collection fee, the residential curbside pickup remains the same at $21.85. Residential, including apartments, dumpsters, remains the same at $11.64. Senior disabled qualifying for real estate tax relief remains the same at $5.54. Excuse me. City Manager, do you have any comments that you'd like to add?
Nothing to add for the tax and fee rate, but then I have comments on the actual budget, but again, like you say, there's no real change for taxes and fees.
Okay. Any comments or?
I'm going to do
Yes.
just one. I just want to remind people that who are paying Prince William County or Manassas City, who live in Manassas Park, number one, you need to pay us. And that was painfully obvious once the decal requirement went into effect, that there were lots of people paying tax, but they were paying it to the wrong jurisdiction. And I mention that because our personal property tax rate is lower than Prince William's and lower than Manassas City's. So if you want to pay less, pay us, because our rate is actually less than our two adjoining neighbors. Actually, I believe our personal property rate is the lowest in Northern Virginia. So just make sure that if you're paying personal property and you live in Manassas Park, make sure you're paying it to Manassas Park, because you'll need to do that in order to also get a decal showing that you've paid personal property. So.
Anybody else? Okay. Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any comments.
Councilmember Sendejas?
I guess ideally we do want to lower the taxes, but hopefully with the downtown development in the next few years, we can lower taxes and make sure that we can support our employees with raises. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No question.
Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve the attached ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2021 tax and fee rates.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Next is the adoption of the fiscal year 2021 budget.
Okay. Just wanted to list some of the highlighted change from the budget from last week that we discussed. So in total, it's about a $36,000 increase in the budget from mainly two items. So the project manager position of $25,000, and then the grants for $19,500 in the capital. So I posted the updated spreadsheet over the weekend for the public to view. Those are really the two changes, and we had that $38,000 contribution to reserves. $8,000 kind of gets washed away to kind of reduce the price tag of those two items that I just talked about, and then $30,000 of that's shifted over to a category called employee awards for whether it's healthcare stipend or something else. I say something else because today we got some additional guidance on the actual hazard pay. So there has to be probably a little bit of scale back on that to the tune of about $15,000. So police is fine, fire is fine, parks and recs is fine, social services is fine, Keith is fine because he was actually directly working COVID-19 response. Other than that, community development department and then the central administration, a little bit iffier there. So a lot of the jurisdictions that have kind of done blanket, they're not going to be able to use CARES Act money for those two components of central administration and then community development. So again, we have to kind of come up with the final numbers of what that gap is, but I would ask perhaps if we could use that $30,000 that we moved to employee awards to still give something to those employees that we were going to give the hazard pay stipend, because that was specifically tiered based off of risk levels that they put themselves through over the last few months from COVID-19. Of course, that would be an FY21 stipend and not an FY20. The current one that we're doing right now is an FY20. But again, not all employees are going to be able to benefit from that hazard pay stipend. So I would ask for some flexibility with that $30,000 to make sure that we cover those employees with city-paid hazard pay versus the CARES Act paid hazard pay. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
I just have a question. How is the operation now that the people is open?
Yeah, we haven't seen a lot of customers. What was the peak period, Keith? Or was it?
54 the last day.
Okay, so about 54 total in one day was kind of the highest. First week was very slow, so I think it took people a while to figure it out that we were reopened. But it started to uptick a little bit this weekend. I think what we're going to see is the closer we get to due dates for things like the water bill, and a few days after that, you'll probably have a lot more people coming in. It's usually the treasurer who drives the majority of people, except of course today with the registrar and the actual primary elections. We had a good turnout, but it's been great. Our employees are doing a great job of ensuring that social distancing is occurring and that our employees and our residents are safe. So we really haven't had a lot of issues with the reopening of City Hall. Of course, with the utilization of Parks and Rec staff to continue to facilitate that. So once we decide to open up the community center, that won't be an option anymore. So social distancing becomes more of a guideline versus kind of a managed process that we're actually going to be able to do.
Follow-up, Councilmember Machado?
I just asked that question because phase 3 is going to happen in July 1st, so I just wanted to have an idea how things work on. Thank you.
Councilmember Sendejas?
I have no question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yes, I just have a question about the full-time employee that we, about the backflow specialist, I think I read it.
Yes.
I don't remember discussing this. What was the need for this?
Yeah, so I did this on my presentation. Remember, it was a recorded presentation this year because of the COVID-19 and remote meetings. But I discussed it, and then Calvin also discussed it. This is 100% paid for by the water fund, so there is no general fund impact. And Calvin, are you still on?
Yes, sir.
Calvin could do a much better job explaining kind of the need.
Yeah, so currently our backflow prevention program, which was, we had a backflow prevention specialist trained, started creating a backflow prevention program prior to the recession in 2008, and that position wound up being terminated, RIF, and since that point, our backflow prevention program has essentially involved a sort of honors program where if you have a backflow device, you have to test it and mail in a copy of your inspection report to the building official's office, and we keep those on file. We do not have anyone out checking all of our city connections, looking for potential cross-contamination, looking for backflow issues. This, the state mandate is that we actually go out and have an active program where we seek out illicit connections and potentials for cross-connection and contamination. These kind of incidents where you can draw either toxins, fertilizers, pesticides, things like that into your water system can be very, very, very costly. Imagine having to flush, potentially half of the city, flush all of the water out of it, and then clean the system and restore water supply to the city. That's the kind of thing that has happened in other jurisdictions and can happen if you don't have an active program and you're not actively seeking out potential for cross-connection. So this is both the residential and the commercial program. It involves someone going out, checking every connection in the city to ensure that there is proper protection of our city system, our potable water system, from any type of pollution, cross-contamination. Also getting inside of people's sprinkler closets and things like that, looking for any unknown tap of a fire line. So there's all sorts of benefits to the program, but the biggest reason that we need someone dedicated to it is because we're mandated by the state to provide oversight of this, and currently we're just sort of on an honor system type program. So my recommendation is definitely that we get someone in that is already fully trained and that can start improving our current program immediately.
Do you have a follow-up?
Can this be something we can hire like a contractor on a need basis, or do we need somebody full-time dedicated just for the job?
We have over 4,000 actual meter connections in the city, and that's not including all the fire connections in the city. I don't imagine that a part-time contract position could give it the type of attention it needs for us to say that, we have approached all of our connections in the city, but, that is always an option. We feel that, probably the most affordable option is to have someone on staff who, can help us develop a full program, including mailers, flyers, added, additions to our website, things like that, public education and outreach, a real backflow prevention program, which we're not going to get from a contractor. We can assign them specific tasks as far as inspections and reports go, but we cannot really create a program through a contractor.
Okay? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Questions or comments here?
I just wanted to.
Yes, Councilmember Machado?
Yes, regarding the question of we can have a contractor, let's all remember that our infrastructure is very old, so we need someone to be just dedicated to monitor those connections. That's it. Thank you.
That's a good point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to point out, I know it's on our sheet, but for the folks at home, is that we're spending $700,000 less at so that the efforts the city is making to save on debt payments is starting to work. We're seeing the results already. I know it doesn't look like it from a lot of, the spreadsheets, and you get into it and you're trying to figure it out, but just that we're spending $700,000 less on debt service this year. That's why the city is actually, on the city side, is spending less money in FY21 than in the current year. We're actually spending less. And if it wasn't for COVID kind of wreaking havoc on everything, we actually could have probably done a tax rate reduction this year with just the amount of money that we saved, but we lost so much money on the business side. So I wanted to point that out. And I wanted to make a comment to the city manager, and I've made this to you in private, is that we can't wait till FY25 to reduce rates. Not for the taxpayers of Manassas Parks. We need to look at that model again, because we're going to have $1.5 million come off of debt service in FY23, and there should easily be room. That's 10 cents on the tax rate reduction. And I know we have other priorities. I know we've delayed spending. I know we have requirements from VRA, but we have to keep our word to the taxpayers, and that's...
In addition to that, I would also want the opinion of the Auditor of Public Accounts, because the APA approved of our way forward.
Yeah, but this, I forgot to update this. Remember, this was originally based off, I haven't updated the model. You guys approved phase 3 last week. I haven't updated. You can see the last line in that bullet. Tax cuts can come sooner and be deeper with the downtown development. So now that you've approved that, I concur with you 100%. It should happen sooner. But this was based off of no downtown. That was probably the soonest we could responsibly do tax cuts.
Yes.
The mayor mentioned, I mean, we have this plan that was sent to the state auditor.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that affect, do we have to update the plan and inform them, or?
They're going to continue to evaluate our position each year, every time we do an audit. And each time we're still in a, we may get the same notice again this year, and might have to go back down to Richmond and discuss everything that happened. I'm hoping with COVID-19 they understand what happened. They like the plan, so as long as we're staying within this framework of long-term budgeting, and now I can update it with the downtown model as well to project what's going to happen now, we're in a much better position. So again, this was a very conservative forecast based off of no downtown revenue, and I forgot to fix that bullet there. But again, I haven't had time to update the model now since we approved it. But I will, and you'll see that in the FY22 budget, it will be the updated model. But you can reference that original budget spreadsheet that had kind of the revenue updates for what was possible with the downtown. So. But no, that we might still get the warning letter each year until we fully climb out of this. But I think they felt very confident in the direction that we were heading. And so if we're asked to go back again, we can discuss all the highlights since we last met with them, that we reestablish our credit. That was a big thing. So we had two outside creditors evaluate our position and look at our economy, as the state did as well, and what we're doing. And now that we've made these positive steps with the phase 3 and 4, that just even improves our position even more. So,
and as long as we continue to place funding into reserves.
Exactly. We can't forget to do that.
You're right.
Yeah.
That was a big thing that the creditors loved, was debt is going down and reserves are going up. As long as we stay committed to that, we're going to be in a very strong position. So that's a great point.
So lastly, you have to do this every year, going down to Richmond and talk to the state auditors. For how many years do you have to do this?
Well, we didn't have to do it this year. So we'll get the audit results here. For this audit, we'll see where, when we submit it in November, we'll see if we get a letter in December or January from the state to see where our position is. I think with the CARES Act, our position might still improve, so we may not get the letter. That would be my hope.
Okay.
So without the CARES Act, I think our position would have gotten a lot worse, but that certainly helped us with all the COVID-19 related expenditures that we were doing this year. It certainly helped us keep us in a good position.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Just a comment. I want to say thank you, Laszlo and staff, for creating this budget. It's very conservative and responsible, and I do look forward to reducing taxes and employee raises now that we have approved the downtown development in the future.
Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve the attached ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2021 budget.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. We have a budget, and congratulations and thank you to everyone who worked on this budget.
We're going to try to update the budget book as well and repost it with the final numbers now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to first quarter appropriations for FY 2021, both for the city and the schools.
Yeah, so no changes to the schools request. That was from the agenda item from last week, and then from the city, no change to our framework of 25% for each quarter for the operating, and then 50% for capital, 50% for debt. The number changed simply because of the change that we made to the budget that I just described. But other than that, there's no changes to this agenda item from last week.
Okay. Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Sendejas?
No more questions, thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
No question.
Questions here? Comments? Okay. Staff recommendation, there'll be two motions. Staff recommendation is that the governing body appropriate $19,611,078 to the city for quarter one of fiscal year 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained? Motion carries. The second motion is that the governing body appropriate $8,577,694 to city schools for quarter one of fiscal year 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All
I
in-
have
all-
a question before we vote on this.
Yeah, oh, excuse me, yeah.
I'm sorry, just because we're
Yeah.
not sure what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Have we gotten a bill yet for or is there a cost now, solid cost on the chiller at the middle school? I guess it's the middle school. And if there is that included in this or not?
I don't think we have received it. Calvin, has Mr. Simpson sent anything to you or Kenny on updated costs? I know Kenny went out there to evaluate it a few weeks ago, but I don't know if we've received any updated costs. Calvin, do you know about that?
I haven't received any cost update. I know that after, some evaluation, Kenny agreed that, the equipment was essentially past its useful life, and the cost that he had discussed was somewhat reasonable. Where he, thought the cost was going to land was somewhat reasonable. But that was it.
I just want to comment that the chair of the school board, Ms. McIntyre-Yurkovich, said that she would update me. She emails me regularly about the status, and I have not yet received an email, so I'm assuming that has not yet been completed, but we are planning on a budget amendment, is that?
That's right, yeah. Now you reminded me of that. So their plan was a budget amendment based off of surpluses from fiscal year 20. So we would be applying some of the surplus that they generate in FY 20 over to 21 to cover this.
And
So
we're
it's
not there yet.
So this
We're
isn't
not there.
this won't be the final number, because that whole amount will be quarter one because they're going to do it immediately.
It should be, yeah. So they should, yes. They'll have to come back with a budget amendment. They don't necessarily have to do a Q1, right? As long as they don't exceed this total amount, which they could do the chiller and still not exceed that total amount, or they would have to, if they plan on exceeding that amount, they would have to come back and then get the appropriations adjustment for quarter one.
If they're only requesting 18% of their budget for the first quarter, how are they not going to be over if they spend $250,000 or $300,000 on a chiller?
I can't say, but
I don't understand how the math would work.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a guess at this because I'm not sure. The fiscal year begins July 1st, so there would be maybe a month and a half without the buses running, without the building being air-conditioned, so that might have something to do with it.
Well,
Yeah.
because 10-month staff doesn't start getting paid till September 1st. Because
So-
I know that's why, but my point being is this appropriation will not, whether we do a budget amendment or not, this appropriation is not going to pay for that. there's not enough money.
It
So not
wouldn't
only do
if,
we need a
yeah,
budget
if
amendment,
they're,
they actually need an appropriation, and we don't meet again until July 16th, is that correct?
July 21st or 23rd?
21st or 22nd, yeah.
So, I mean, the issue is timeliness, I mean.
Well, no, they could come back in September and get a budget. If they felt that they were going to exceed their quarter 1 appropriation amount, they can come back in September and get that adjustment.
So
they
in
still
other
have a
words,
few
they're not
months.
going to spend $8.5 million in 4 weeks.
Yeah, July 21st would be the meeting in July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Okay. Okay, did we have a motion and a second on this, or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
because I just asked the question.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. This might be a good time to read this, a Facebook comment. Was it Facebook? Okay. From Sarah Jens, a resident of Manassas Park. She said, "We ask that you not destroy Connor House out of hand before exploring all possibilities for preserving this most important piece of history. An offer has been made to move Connor House, and I and many others sincerely hope you will consider taking up this offer." Thank you for your note, ma'am. Okay, moving on to 8E, which is the appropriations for the PRTC subsidies. Who's up?
If you have, I mean, Calvin would be briefing this if you have any questions.
So every year we, essentially we use our motor fuels tax unencumbered fund balance to cover our appropriations for the various PRTC programs that are offered to Manassas Park residents. Every jurisdiction in the PRTC coverage area pays their appropriations. Some may have cash, but that requires budgeting, special budget line item in cash for those payments. We choose to use our unencumbered motor fuels tax fund balance. So the proper procedure is for us to have a resolution in place saying that our governing body wishes to appropriate that money out of our unencumbered balance, and then that goes to the PRTC board for their approval with an internal resolution. So this is something that just covers the Manassas Parks participation in PRTC, including the VRE, the Omni-Ride program, and everything that they offer, including their operations. So the resolution before you, it covers all of our appropriations for the year.
Thank you, Calvin. Councilmember Machado, questions, comments?
No question, thank you.
Councilmember Sendejas?
No question, thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
No question.
Okay. Any questions here?
I had a question, is how many ridership do we have for VRE?
Oh, that has plummeted.
Well, I know with COVID, I know that, I mean, I know it's not, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about normally, like kind of pre-COVID.
Vice Mayor Banks is our VRE rep, do you know?
I can give you the numbers, but,
You mean, is it like 200 a day?
I'll give you those numbers.
Yeah, he can email them to us.
I was just wondering.
This is a significant decrease.
Yeah.
Even currently, since the summertime, we have people, taking vacation.
I was just wondering, because it's $500,000 almost to do VRE.
Okay, don't be alarmed at that. That is because of the 1989 VRE master agreement. That master agreement requires upfront payment for the year. So that
I
covers.
just was just wondering, because I guess I hadn't really paid attention so much to the individual numbers in the PR. I mean, they do these every year. I just wondered how much ridership we had for $500,000. I guess I was just kind of interested.
Okay.
Kind of outside of COVID, kind of, because given that only 35% of the people in the parking lot actually are Manassas Park residents, you start wondering, like, how many spaces do we have, and only like 1/3 of those spaces are actually Manassas Park residents. You just have to wonder, like, that's $500,000.
And our local subsidy has increased. And it's something that I have
Is there a formula, Vice Mayor Banks? Is there a?
And I will explain it over email.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Yeah, no, I know. It popped out at me because I was like, wow, that's a lot of money for, especially even just at our station.
They do a ridership study once a year.
That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking, that
they
they
do.
did some kind of census every year, every periodically, to figure out where people,
Right.
like at each station, where they lived and how.
Does it last a week, Preston? Or is it one day
The survey.
on all trains, the survey?
I
Yeah.
think it's just one day, but they surveyed numerous times during the year for them
Yeah.
as a provider. And it is based on the survey results. And, yeah, I dispute the formula and the increase, because I think Manassas Park is a smaller jurisdiction relative to others. And so I think our increase shouldn't be as much.
Yeah. But we all have to remember, too, that it's very expensive to run fixed rail.
It is.
Extremely expensive.
And we're running it, and we don't own the tracks, and we're leasing the tracks for the
Yeah.
time slots that we have.
Right.
We'll all be curious to see the formula, how it's calculated. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor Banks. Okay. So are there any other comments or questions? Okay.
Every time though, just a reminder, every time somebody buys gas, you buy it in Manassas Park, because this is how we pay for this, right here, is so that we don't have to take property tax or personal property, we are able to take gas tax. So you pay the tax everywhere, but if you buy it at Manassas Park Station, it actually helps us pay these types of expenses along with paving.
Staff recommendation is for the governing body to adopt the resolution allocating $671,664 in PRTC motor fuels tax funds administered by PRTC staff to cover the city's subsidies for PRTC's FY21 administration, operating, and capital investment costs.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
All opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to 8A. This 8A is regarding relic hunting. 2 formal written requests per city code have been submitted for relic hunting on the Connor property. My thoughts were that we should grant them a sufficient time window. Both gentlemen have a great deal of experience, as I'm sure you've seen in the paperwork. Because of weather, because of summer vacations, reunions, folks have a day job, and I'm sure it's quite time-consuming to do this type of work. My personal recommendation would be a time slot not to exceed 6 weeks, beginning on July 1st. Either 4 or 6 weeks. I'm just trying to be generous to these folks.
One question.
It's already been heavily gone over.
Yeah, I had
The
one question.
lot.
Is if they find something, who gets that? Do the people that are looking for it, if they find some artifact or they find something historically significant, that's obviously not the house
Is there
itself.
something customary regarding that, City
I don't
Attorney?
know, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's certainly, I think you should stipulate that it's just coming out of the grounds, because one of the
Yeah.
concerns was they might take something out of the house
Yeah,
itself.
we'll stipulate that.
But,
Yeah.
you know, it's up to you what you want to do with it. I mean, do you want them to donate it to a future museum, or just allow them to keep it themselves?
My personal thoughts is to not be restrictive. I mean, if they have this much experience, I'm sure they have already donated, because to have been active for this many decades shows a sincere interest. So I would not, I don't think they're going to find much, because that has been gone over previously.
Are we going to, does the access that we're granting allow them to go into the fenced area and do the hunting, or just on the outside of the fenced area?
No, right up to the building.
Right up to the building?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wasn't clear, because I know we don't generally let people go into the fenced area.
Mhm.
Actually, I've never been into the Connor house, and I've lived here my whole life just about, so I doubt most people have actually been in the house either, just because it's mostly been fenced off, so.
Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
Yes, I have a question, since, the corner house, is already, very fragile, will this cause any, accidents, is the city, will be liable for any, harm to these individuals?
That's a good question.
Well,
That's-
so right now we have, it's fenced out, it's fenced. You can't get in there. If anyone was to get in there, they would be trespassing. If the city's aware of anything and we actively choose not to do anything, then there is some legal liability. But for us, as long as it doesn't rise to the level of gross negligence, the city would be immune from a lawsuit. But that being said, I don't know if anyone's gone over there to see what the state of it is recently. I don't know if there's something over there that could harm somebody or not. So it might be a good idea to go and check it out before we let people in there to do this relic thing.
Laszlo, what department would you assign to go over and check prior to, say, July 1st?
Yeah, it's under the Parks and Rec Department purview, so I can work with Jay, and Jay can consult with Calvin and his department to see if he needs any assistance. But as long as you're telling him to stay away from the house, he would just be evaluating the exterior. So you may want to stipulate a certain distance from the house that they can't touch in order to avoid any hazardous issues, but they can at least just survey the area to see if there's any other risk there and come back to you.
Like, say, stay 1 foot from the house or 2 feet from the house?
I'd probably say 5, just.
Pardon?
5 feet, I would say, yeah.
That's going to lessen the amount, the chances for them to, what does the governing body
Yeah.
think?
Depends.
I'm concerned about liability too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like a tag on the risk type of thing. That
Well-
will protect the city in case someone, one of the relic hunters gets hurt.
Well, the letters, we'll prepare a letter of permission for each one of these gentlemen if you approve it, and as the code requires, it has to be signed by the mayor. We do put in there a provision that they indemnify the city and hold us harmless, and they clean up after themselves. I mean, everything that they put into their letters, we would put in there as well. If you have a distance away from it, certain times that you want them in there, and obviously daylight hours is probably a good idea, just to make sure they don't hurt themselves. Just think about what you want to put in there and just let me know, put that in the letters.
Okay.
I like the idea of a certain distance away from the house to not cause any damage.
Yeah. So we can come back with a recommendation after we evaluate it.
Sure.
Maybe 3 feet.
Okay.
I think a recommendation would be better. This
We
is the old
yeah.
structure.
If you allow, we can just do it via email and then just give your consent.
Sure.
The final
Would they
details.
still be able to start then, say, for example, July 1st?
Yeah, we try to get somebody out there as soon as possible, but
Okay.
we would want to have this done before. So I would just set a time period, like a number of weeks versus an actual date.
Okay.
So whenever they sign it, it's X amount of weeks after that period.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that sounds good. That sounds good.
Is the fence locked? And it sounds dumb, but like, is it locked, and how would they get in? Would they have to come to a city employee to get in, or would we give them a key, or do they have to be escorted, or?
It's up to you. I mean, I would suggest that somebody from Parks and Rec should meet them there, let them have access, just so we know that they're there.
But what if they want to go on a weekend?
Well, they do
Call
have
if you want.
day jobs, possibly, yeah.
Right, so like, which of our city employees is going to be there on a Saturday to let them in?
Yeah,
Well,
would they
we
to
have
stay?
weekend park staff, so we could assign, it would be an extra duty though. So it just depends, do you want them staying with them while they're
Yeah.
doing this, or just letting them in and out?
Because they'd have to lock it behind them, correct, when they are done?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd have to sit out there all day.
Yeah.
I guess it's an in and out thing.
Well, we have these things called cell phones. I mean, they can just call up and
Right.
say, hey, we're going to be there in 15 minutes. Be
That's
with
true.
us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's an inconvenience for the staff to be there after hours or on Saturday and Sunday, I mean, in addition to what we're tasking them already with.
Yeah. It would make it easier just stipulating Monday through Friday work hours. It would guarantee that, you're going to have a lot of park staff active.
But the
anyways.
reality is if these people have day jobs, they're not going to be able to do that.
They
Well,
may
one
very
is-
well have day jobs.
One is retired.
We don't know for sure.
One is retired and the other,
Oh, yeah, Guy Springs said he's retired.
Does someone have to let them in, or can they just telephone Parks and Rec and say, I'm here for a specific period of time?
If it's locked up, you don't want to just leave it unlocked all the time because, vandals can get in there easily.
How tall is the fence?
I don't have to know it for a while.
Well, the reason I asked, there was an historical group in southern Prince William County where one of the gentlemen came up and just let himself in and walked around and, essentially trespassed. So, and nothing happened, so. My recommendation is not to overthink it. I mean, put in enough safeguards and not overthink it. Councilmember Machado, comments, questions?
No question.
Councilmember Sendejas?
No question, thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, I have a question. Did we discuss, if, say hypothetically, if they do find something, what, are they supposed to report it to us, or are they keeping it to themselves? Because in my mind, if we want to preserve history, especially Civil War history, archaeologists can go over there, find something, go into the museum, basically put on top. I see that, relic hunters, they go out there, if they find something, are they keeping it for profit? Are they going to preserve that history with the museum? I mean, it seems like it doesn't state what they would do with the artifacts if there's something found.
Well, we did.
Years back, they found a Native American arrowhead, which seemed to have some type of value. I mean, who knows, if something could pop up that could be really significant in that era, So these relic hunters are not considered archaeologists, so they don't have to preserve it or do it, right? They just sell it on the market if they want to.
Well, we did touch upon that briefly earlier. I don't personally think we should limit what they do with what they find. I don't think they're going to find that much. But that's up to the group, whatever the governing body wants to do.
Right, I'm just saying, hypothetically, if they find something of significance that deals with the Civil War, say per se, since we're recommending not to put any restrictions, that piece of history would be lost with the relic hunter.
Well, if it remains in the ground, it would be lost also.
Right, that's why there's a difference between an archaeologist and a relic hunter. Right. So if we want to see if there's anything on those city lands, we could commission out an archaeologist to come out there and see if there's anything of value there first. If not, then the relic hunters go at it. But if there's a piece of history down there that needs to be preserved, I think it'd be better hands in a nonprofit organization.
I don't foresee the city ever commissioning an archaeologist. Yeah.
Steve, I see your point. I think Prince William County, because I was on the library board at the time, when they opened up Montclair Library, the new library, they had a historic house right in front of it. And I think they allowed college students that were studying archaeology to go there and to dig. I think that's what they did. But I don't know I forgot whether or not they kept it or there was whatever they found they gave it to the Historical Association. But that was an idea.
Maybe we want to encourage anything found, put it in our library.
That's cool.
Maybe.
What was your question, Hasib? I didn't hear you.
Oh, no, I was mimicking what the president was saying, that there's a good point that the university students go out there, because they don't have, they could donate it or do a science studies, whatever, they don't keep the artifact for profit, right? So that piece of history can be preserved.
Or our new library, like Councilmember Shoemaker mentioned.
Maybe we can have it displayed, if they're found things, maybe we can have it displayed in our new library.
Mhm.
Just like that exhibit.
So-
It could be consumed by the public, hey, this is what we found at the old Connor House, we found these 4 things.
And give them credit by
You know.
so-and-so.
Or Guy Spring, or by Chesty Frank, or whoever, and maybe to do it that way, and then, the things they find would live on, and educate others as they come to our library, and we can move it once we go to the new place. And it would preserve it.
I'm for that. I would feel much better if we stipulated that will be done with the artifacts and they stay a certain distance from the house or foundation. I'm also a little hesitant to say they can come out on weekends if it requires an employee to sit there while they're there. So maybe Monday through Friday.
What do you?
Do the park managers?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Why don't we fill in those details here? Let's let Parks and Rec provide a recommendation. We'll send you an email, and then we can kind of fill in those details. But I think right now there's, the larger questions about what happens to the relics and kind of giving the feedback about doing this evaluation for safety. So we'll do that, and we'll come back with a recommendation on these items.
I personally think we're being too restrictive. I think that if we don't let them keep something, that the urge to relic hunt will drop significantly. So,
I think part of looking for that stuff.
Yeah, I see your concern, Madam Mayor, but relic hunters, they will sell it to a private collector, I think my concern is that, these won't go to museums, these won't go to, will be donated, and they'll just seek for profit, just try to sell this for the highest bidder. If there's something found, if not, I will put something in there that if there's something so significant that Manassas Park gets credit for, and we could preserve that history for the people that want to, look at it and share it.
no, I understand your perspective. So, does someone want to make a motion?
Are we doing a motion, or do you think we've given enough?
Do we need a
feedback?
motion?
Well, have we given you enough feedback to craft the proposal for us?
So do you want us to craft a proposal, or?
Well, in order to grant permission, we have to take a vote. That's according to city code.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, so I'll move that we allow these 2 individuals that have presented to us, Guy Spring and Chesty Frank, to be given.
Now, Mr. Spring will be bringing some people with him, a couple folks with him.
Okay,
So
teams led by Guy.
it's easier to say, agree to the 2 requests.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I was trying to name them specifically.
Yeah,
to give them
yeah.
permission, but- Right, then I'll move that we grant access and permission to the 2 gentlemen who have presented to us with requests for relic hunting, and that we ask that their findings be made available to the public in terms of access to our library or other communities, that we can all enjoy the findings of what they find on the property for 6 weeks after the signing of the agreements between the city and the gentleman.
Okay. Do we have a second?
During the daylight. Yeah, second. Well, no, I'm going to let the Parks and Rec staff do that. Got it. Second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait, I just need clarification.
All
I may have
opposed?
missed-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Abstain, motion carries.
Yeah, I may have missed that earlier conversation. So you're saying all the items then would be handed over to the library?
For display.
For like other public consumption, so that they can.
Library, Manassas
library-
Museum.
You said that they would be made available to the public, right?
So how would they do that?
They'll be donated for display.
They may have
Okay.
a personal preference of where to donate them. If they don't, they could give them to the library.
Okay, so then it would be on us to figure out what to do with it, because we don't have a big library. I don't know what they're going to find out there, but
We also have the new, or the community, and we have the new library coming in '23, so if they don't currently have space.
We have a case downstairs, don't we?
Yeah.
Do we have a glassed-in
Yeah.
case?
Community
Okay.
center.
So you guys just want to hold on to these items? Okay.
Well, I don't, but the governing body seems to want to hold on to
Okay,
these
so
items.
the governing
yeah.
body or the city's going to own everything then? Is that what you're saying? Or are they going to own it and just make it available to the public?
I would request they donate them either to the city or to the Manassas Museum or the museum of their choosing.
Nonprofit?
Correct.
But we can say that
For no fee.
use of the language donate, that's basically saying that they have ownership. If it's not city managed, then the city take ownership of the artifacts.
You?
I mean, I think they should be
That's-
able to donate them to any museum that is
So I
reputable.
I would say if we had a museum.
I can see Hasib's point. Hasib, is your point that if they're relic hunting, do they own what they pull out of the ground? Or is it considered city property, whether it was in the ground or just pulled out of the ground? Is that what your point is?
Yes, yes. So I mean, whatever they pull out from the ground is city property. So they should not have any rights to whatever they find.
So that sounds like a city attorney question.
I mean, so it sounds like we don't have consensus on what's going in this permission.
I don't think we do have consensus,
Well, so-
really.
I mean, I know that they wanted to do this quickly, but why don't you just give us direction, rescind the vote you just did, give us direction, we'll discuss it with these two gents, craft up the letters and then present them to you for a vote at your next meeting, which,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
unfortunately is not until the middle of July, but still, it still gets 6 weeks.
Okay.
Takes it to the end of August.
I think we're being too restrictive, but I think we're overthinking it, but, you know, that's just one person's opinion. Do we have a motion to rescind the previous vote?
As the maker of the motion, can I just, I guess, I move that rescind the motion for the relic hunting at Congress.
Is it rescind the motion or rescind the vote?
Rescind the other vote.
The vote.
You already
Rescind.
voted on the motion.
Rescind the vote on House.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. That was interesting.
That's unusual,
Okay.
so we'll
Okay.
craft the letters of permission, and then that'll be what you vote on at your next
Okay,
meeting.
okay. And that'll give you a chance to speak with both gentlemen and get an idea of how they want to proceed.
Yeah, and what they
perhaps.
want to do with it, too. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it was their intent all along that it would be
Yeah.
the city's property. Maybe their
Yeah.
intent was that they would own it and do what they want with it. I don't think we
Okay.
ever got clarity on that.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Yes. Hector?
So, maybe it's a compromise, let's say if they find, 2 arrowheads, maybe they can keep one and give one to the city, but at the same time, you're not guaranteed that they're gonna find duplicates of different items.
Oh, so 50%, that's a very good suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, 50% would become, well, I found X and Y, and I'm gonna give them one, though, and it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
I've seen relics, I mean, I've been to gun shows and I've seen relics on sale, and, I mean, it's, I get Hasib's point. It should be for history and for people to see.
Well, it's city-owned property, so, you know, if it was private property, that would be a different matter.
And that was my intention with the motion, is that the items become public so that people could look and enjoy and learn from them. I mean, that's the intent. Whether we own it always or whatever, that's the legal question, but the intent of what I think some of us are saying is that we want the items to be public, we want people to learn, we want people to, you know, so that they're on display and people, you know, people can see them and things that came from Manassas Park.
Okay, well, we've voted on that. Now would be a good point, a good time to read a comment from YouTube. Mr. Rick Hatcher emailed in and said, "Kudos to the election officials today for being very efficient while being safe." Thank you, Mr. Hatcher. Okay. Moving on to 8B, which is HVAC for Manassas Park Library.
This was worth the wait just to get my mask off. Good evening, Mayor and everybody. The city is currently in the process of preparing the Manassas Park City Library at Blooms Park for opening. The planned minor renovations of the interior of the building remains on schedule for completion, and city staff is in the process of installing furniture and equipment, preparing to open the facility to the public. The city facility manager has completed an inspection of the current heating and air conditioning units that had not been operating properly. Sure sign was when we opened the doors and it was 82 degrees in there, we figured we had a problem. It was noted that 3 of the 4 HVAC units are not operational. The units are unable to properly maintain the efficiency and service of the building. The 3 HVAC units are original to the facility and they exceed 25 years in age. They were originally installed back in 1995. Given the poor condition of the current units, the staff has identified a need and is recommending replacing 3 of the 4 units. The replacement of the 3 25-year-old units will address the operational needs of the library and allow the facility to open to the public in the next several weeks. The cost on those 3 units are estimated to be just under $20,000 at about $19,995. So we have a recommendation from the staff that the governing body authorize the city manager and staff to replace the aging HVAC units at the Blooms Park Library facility at a cost not to exceed $19,995.
Do you want to add your?
Thank you.
I'd like to point out as well, we would just be using small procurement for this, so it's underneath the legal limit.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
Chief, thank you so much, and thank you for bringing this to the government body. Thank you for providing the pictures. We really need to do this purchase to replace the HVAC system. Thank you so much for your work. Thanks.
Councilmember Sendejas?
No problem. Thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, I just had a question. What do we, what's our plan for using this building after the library moves out?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a future discussion point. I can tell you from the Parks and Rec staff perspective that they would like to rent it out as for parties, weddings, other things. It's a very nice building, especially with the improvements that we're doing right now, are things that we'd probably be doing at that point anyways, except for some of the changes that we made with the window viewing, cutting out that door. Those were the minor changes that we made, but all these other things really support the building for future use. It can be for office if we want to. I think that's a decision we can think about over the next 2 years about what we want to do with it. Parks and Rec staff would like to rent it out for events. Yeah.
And, this seems to be an unexpected expense. How would this change the overall budget towards the library?
Yeah, so again, think about for the library itself, all we really spent for the library purposes was $9,800 for the internal kind of minor renovations to make it work for the library. These other improvements were for the building itself, for whatever use it's going to be in perpetuity. They were items that would have had to have been done regardless of whether it's a library or other public use, if we wanted to use those facilities. But again, this is coming out of the Blooms Park facilities improvements that we discussed during the budget amendment when we sold the house, to make sure that this facility was, had the minor renovations outside of just the library items, plus the work that we did already for the proposed registrar's building that didn't end up becoming the registrar's building. So, but no, we're below budget because we didn't go forward with the registrar building plan. So there's, we're going to come way under budget for that specific line item.
last question, I guess maybe for Calvin, he's still online. Now, the whole unit for the HVAC needs to be replaced, or can you get areas that depicted on these pictures can be replaced? Does that kind of cost, the furnace is fine, you can use that, but if your air handlers need to be replaced, you can just do those.
Right, so typically, what we do know right now is there's a dead short in one of the outdoor compressors. So in one of the actual condensing units, there is a dead short. So that compressor would have to be changed. The cost of the compressor, given the age of the unit, the rusted out condition of the fan, and everything like that, you would just replace the outdoor unit. The indoor units, I'm not sure if they are furnaces with air, furnaces attached to air handlers. Typically, heat exchangers have the shortest lifespan of the equipment. So even once they develop leaks in the heat exchangers, if they are gas furnaces, that creates an unsafe situation where you're actually circulating carbon monoxide into the building. So I'm not sure if these are furnaces attached to air handler units, but if they are furnaces, that would probably be the reason we would be replacing them, is to get rid of the old heat exchangers. Usually get a discount in install cost if you're actually replacing the indoor with the outdoor. So I don't know exactly which way we're pricing this. And again, we haven't bid this out. To my knowledge, we haven't gotten all the quotes in hand yet. So I know that this is a not to exceed value that we're asking for, but we'll be looking, if there is an air handler that we can save, or an outdoor condensing unit that makes sense to save. The other thing we have to consider here is we don't want to run our R22 units anymore than we absolutely need to. R22 is becoming very, very, very expensive. So if there is an opportunity to switch out an entire system and switch to 410A, which is a more readily available and highly affordable coolant, then we're going to take that opportunity too, because we have to think about long-term maintenance costs as well. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments here?
I just want to make sure we get units that are made in the United States. I don't know if that's a requirement, but I'd like to see that as a proposal.
I'd like to see the best price obtained, no matter where it's made.
Train. The AC units will be trained.
They're local.
I think so.
You said, I couldn't quite hear what the chief said.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's what they say. Let's hope.
So does that fill the bill? Is that American made?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and authorize. Hello?
Sorry, I have one for you, motion.
You have a last minute question?
Yeah, with that price, 20,000 already, do we get quotes for that, or is that just an estimate?
We're working on quotes, and we're working on negotiating those down further.
But, I'm saying, if we're replacing the whole unit, that seems like not enough. We might come back and request more for replacing the whole unit.
Well,
I was wondering if that was an actual quote to replace the 3 out of 4.
Yeah, we're strong on the quotes that we've gotten on the units. There's actually 4 units out there. The 3 units are the ones that are, 3 units are actually being replaced. Kenny was able to work on 1 unit, and has 1 unit operational. Yes, there's 4 different zones in the facility.
We would welcome, of course, more money if you all want to give it to us to.
I couldn't hear what you said.
I said we would welcome a larger amount, not to exceed, to give us more flexibility if you want to. Yeah. We try to keep this as tight as possible.
I do have a higher quote that we can get with. I figured you didn't want to hear that tonight, so.
Okay. No, we do want the best price. We really do. Councilmember Javed, do you have any more follow-up? Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contract documents for the replacement of the aging HVAC units at the Blooms Park Library facility at a cost not to exceed $19,995, pending final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you,
very
Chief, very much. Thank you. Moving on to 8C, Library Copiers.
Don, are you on?
Sam, good evening, everybody. We're looking at two copiers for the new library. One will be one for the patrons to use to buy copies, and the other one is for the staff. Very simple, basic copies for it. With the amount of $6,592.32 a year. It's a 4-year contract for a total of $26K.
Okay. Okay, that's very straightforward. Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Machado?
I guess I have two questions.
Yes.
So for the supply for these two copiers or printers, is the contract including the supply?
Yes, we do have part of the contract is service, which they supply the toner cartridges and repair on the machines. Supply that the paper now, but the toner and they're coming out to repair, yes. We get, right now, moving most of our copies over to a vendor called Optics, that's a family owned in Gainesville, and they've been very good at repairing, coming out when needed, and working with us on what we need.
My second question is about the copier for the users, for the visitors. Is there a limit regarding printing? How are we going to review that?
For the patrons, or for patrons pay for theirs. So they can copy as much as they want, as long as they pay for it, of course. So it's like most libraries and FedEx, that kind of thing, there will be a machine there for them to pay for their copies. And that's one of the reasons why we use the Sharp. We have different types. The Sharp is for the patrons to use because it takes a special adapter and a special machine to put on top of it next to it so that they can pay for their copies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it the contract with LS&S, were they supplying some type of equipment for the library?
Yeah, so,
They're providing the equipment that hooks to the copy. The power bill point that goes with it.
yeah, so,
We are doing we're the ones who lease out the copies.
with all furniture, equipment, technology, we're looking internally as well where we can get better prices. They go out and source their prices as well. So we always go with where we can get the biggest bang for the buck. So even with their furniture and equipment budget, there were some items that Jay was able to handle himself, and then the other items that would be provided by LS&S.
Right, I mean, so using LS&S, we use their connections in that world, get better pricing. I thought that was kind of the direction we were going to take with them.
Yeah.
They do have all the better sources.
Yeah, well, think about it from a software standpoint. The answer is yes, they're going to have that. But remember, for the copier and thing, they're when you read the contract, we're the IT department, just like for any, if we were using internal staff, it's the city IT department that comes out and does the actual maintenance for IT equipment. So we want to have control over those items that we have to maintain. But you're absolutely right from a book standpoint, a software standpoint, and even other procurement items, other supplies. Most of it, to be honest with you, like Jay was managing the furniture and equipment budget with them. Most of it came from LS&S. We couldn't beat their prices. But for technology, Don was taking the lead, partnering with their tech rep to make sure that whatever we were getting is standard enterprise-wide for the city, since it's our responsibility to maintain it.
Correct. Like some of the equipment, they gave us a list of what we should get, and the pricing, I got very close to that for most of the stuff. But whereas, like they said, HP server, we don't have HP servers, we're a Dell server, so I don't want to go out of the box and change up how we do things. It should be all standardized, so with the Dell server, that kind of thing. But for the software, they do have a better pricing through a nonprofit that they're hooking us up with, so in the future, for the library, we'll be able to have the same pricing as they do for it.
Okay, and then as a follow-up on that, like say the LS&S staff, they're using our equipment, are they authorized to make a service call without our permission?
As into, they're gonna send all their requests to us, just like, all the others. So even like, Department of Social Services, most of their equipment is owned by the state. They still contact us. We've got a good relationship and working with them on who to call for what. For the copiers, yeah, I'm gonna give them the right to make that call if the copy breaks down, because it'll be faster for them to call and to get that going. If there's a server issue, they'll be contacting us through the same way that all the other cities handle their tickets, and then we'll take it from there and probably get the OS group involved if it has to do something that we can't do.
Do you have a follow-up, Hasib?
Yeah, that question is about like you said, mentioned these equipment are leased. Would it be beneficial to just outright buy it?
Well, if you outright buy it, then we have to pay for all the toner and the other stuff. When you lease it, it all comes with it. And it's a lot cheaper. So in 4 years, when our lease is up, we'll get a nicer, better copier with lease. I have not seen where owning it is better. In fact, working with them, all they do is with their libraries is lease too, because in the long run, the repairs of it and the toner and stuff is cheaper in the long run. And then you swap out for a newer machine as it wears out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments here?
No, I agree. There's so many different components to a copy machine and different chutes and all and bins. I mean, it's always a problem in owning it, and it breaks down eventually. So it's better. I definitely agree with Donna to lease.
Comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, Don, very much. Staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to approve the office lease for 2 copiers for the Manassas Park City Library pending final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
There's always a delay on that.
Yeah, and here we are, manager's report.
Yeah, so I believe we want to talk about Phase 3, is that correct?
Yeah, I just was bringing it up because, it just got announced like this afternoon, and so I guess, we can do a lot about Phase 3, but I guess my question was a discussion we had, I don't know, it seems like forever ago, but it was probably maybe 6 weeks ago, about what we were going to do with Signal Bay Water Park. And with the idea that if we went to Phase 3, that we might still open for the season. And it actually seems, in my mind, that Phase 3 seems to be coming kind of earlier than I I thought maybe it would be like July 15th or maybe closer to August 1st. It seemed kind of, we went from 2 and now we're going to 3, but, you know, I know that the county has closed for the season. They kind of preemptively said they weren't going to open. It's hot. I was outside today for 3.5 hours, and I was outside yesterday for 5 hours, so, in a hot truck. So I know how hot it is during the summertime. You know, what are your thoughts? You know, maybe we could be open by July 15th. I think we could do a good business opening Signal Bay Water Park for Phase 3.
Yeah.
I don't know what your professional thoughts are, but I'd like to maybe see us do it, you know, even if it's just for the last 6 weeks of the summer through Labor Day. You know, I think there'd be if we need to do extra methods, I think we could raise the price to cover our costs because we might be the only game in town. Because, as I say, Prince William has already closed, and I don't know what Manassas has done. We want to keep people safe, but also give people local low-cost entertainment because people haven't had jobs or, you know, have had interruptions in income, and, you know, they may have had to cancel family vacations, you know, because of not feeling safe to go to beaches or resorts with, you know, really big groups of people. You know, we could still keep it down to, you know, say 250 people, which I believe is the limit in Phase 3. I don't know what the Signal Bay Water Park capacity is. It's probably more than 250, but we could say.
What is their capacity?
Yeah, I don't have that off the top of my head. I can respond to your comments if you're done.
Well, just kind of as a general thought that I mean, even if I don't, personally go, there might be other people that might like to, and, you know.
Yeah. So Jay is still evaluating Phase 3 from his initial reading. The only thing he thinks we could actually open up is the lazy river. There seems to be regulations on other kind of aquatic activities that are associated with the other parts of the water park. So the lazy river, just opening up the lazy river itself doesn't make ton of sense for patrons. I don't even know how you would price that thing. I do agree that the other jurisdictions probably jumped the gun a little bit too quickly to just say we were closed for the whole season before coming, you know, seeing what was actually going to happen. So we never did that. We always reserved the right to reopen. I think with Phase 3, it's coming quicker like you thought. They never defined what Phase 3 was. This was very recently. Until calls just a couple weeks ago, they had no idea. It really seems like a modified Phase 2. Phase 3 at the federal level was back to normal, so really no restrictions. This still has, you know, some restrictions for businesses. So our plan was always really, when we got back to normal, it was when we were going to evaluate or, you know, reopen the water park and the community center. This still isn't back to normal, and the numbers that I presented last time, they're looking great, and I'm very happy for it. But remember, there was still that issue in our region specifically. We're doing a little bit worse than the rest of Northern Virginia, and you saw this week with the CDC coming out here as well. There is some concern, a localized concern in our area, so I wouldn't want to jump the gun too quickly in our area yet to reopen, but I do agree that I do see us reopening now in the summer based off of kind of the positive trends, especially with the percent positives that continue to go down. It's the hospitalizations and the deaths that are still a little bit concerning in our region. So I would ask that we have a little bit more time just to evaluate Phase 3, see if those regulations permit us. So I'll have Jay take a deeper dive, see if we can open up the water park, but I would still recommend, I agree more with you about kind of a July 15th timeline, because it would still be, even if we decided right now, let's open, there's still a couple weeks to kind of ramp up, but I think a July 15th would be a little bit more reasonable. They're moving a lot quicker than what I thought. Right. My plan was July 21st, I was going to come back with, okay, here's, you know, we've evaluated the numbers now after having gone into Phase 2 and being in Phase 2 for 30 days and see what the outcomes are, because you see in certain states that have been open, that started opening up a little bit quicker than us, they're starting to see kind of a rise. So I wanted to wait at least 30 days, see how we reacted to moving into Phase 2, where now you had indoor dining and other activities. Okay. And come back to you all on July 21st with my recommendation after doing kind of a deep dive on the numbers, seeing from a 30-day, at that point it would be a 40-day period of being reopened, what that did to our numbers before coming back with it, but being ready, you know, to reopen that time. But if there's a desire to open up quicker, we can do that. But I would recommend, no sooner than July 15th, just to give
Would
us
it-
some more time.
Would it be possible to open August 1st?
That was our goal, to be honest with you. That's the internal goal we've had, is we're opening up the community center and the water park on August 1st, because that was going to give us plenty of time to evaluate what's happening with the numbers when we do reopen, and not make a hasty decision to open a little bit too quickly, and the numbers start spiking. And because of that concern, that localized concern in this specific area, with the rates, I think we need to be a little bit more cautious as well.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess I brought it up too, is if we decided July 21st, it's going to be too late. I mean.
Well, we could do August 1st if we decide July 21st. We will be ready for August 1st.
I just, because I know it would take a while to ramp up in terms of hiring, lifeguards and summer staff, and, even though unemployment's like 13% right now.
But if
so-
August 1st was already the projected time, they
No.
would be ramping up for that.
Yeah, we'll be ready for August 1st. Like, that's
That's what they had originally planned on.
right. Even a month ago, I told Jay, be ready August 1st, based off of kind of where this was heading. But I do agree with you, the phases are moving a lot quicker than I had originally anticipated. But again, phase 3 at the federal level, when you look at the federal plan to reopen America, phase 3 was back to normal. This is not back to normal. So I think
Right.
phase 4 is going to be more of a
Right.
back to normal. And I'm not sure when the state is moving to a phase 4. Yeah.
I was thinking that if we can accommodate crowds of up to 250 people, and we don't even have to do that. I mean, we could say we only want to do 100. I mean, 250 is like kind of the legal maximum that we would be allowed. We could set a limit that is less than 250. That would be Manassas Park's capacity. Like we don't want to go up to the 250 initially. If there's a concern that there may be too many people in an area, we could say, we're only going to allow 150 or 100 or two, whatever it is.
But you're not going to get people to spread out. People are going to congregate.
Right, and the health
Right.
department will come to inspect.
Right.
So we want to make sure we're following the law.
Well, right, but I mean, in terms of, we could set a capacity that's less than the allowable legal limit.
The capacity is not the issue. The issue is however many you allow in there, they'll be congregating in groups.
Right.
I mean, I don't think you can regulate people's behavior to that extent, Donald.
Little kids. I think
Yeah.
You can't, yeah.
Even if you were to separate the chairs around the edge, all the kids are going to be on top of each other in the water.
Yes.
I know the pool my kids go to, they have to be 6 feet apart. So how are we going to keep kids 6 feet apart when they're going down slides and running around little tunnels and stuff?
If I may say something?
Yes.
I feel, voice of opinion on the pool, I feel like during this summer, it might be a huge liability. Because, I mean, for one, would the lifeguards be comfortable, say, if someone needs CPR, would they be comfortable performing CPR if someone is in a drowning situation?
Well, they would.
We have external.
They would ethically have to do that, would they not?
Yeah, they would have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we use the comfort level of the people might want to go out, but the lifeguards are the important part, because a lot of, they're going to be looking at the kids. And, and then you need someone there to enforce maybe social distancing, and you don't want to put that on a community. So you need to hire additional staff for that. I mean, I just feel like it might be a huge liability.
Yeah, so our concern always was kind of the staffing. Like, if we had to open with, like we're doing with City Hall right now, right? We're doing it in a very, very safe way, and that's only because we have these Parks and Rec staff to utilize. So to open up the community center and the water park during these regulated areas would require additional staff to enforce social distancing, and that wasn't something that we were interested in doing, because it would require additional staffing plus probably reduced, maybe not for the water park, because to your point, there might be a significant demand, so you might be able to kind of keep pricing, but certainly the community center, if you're restricting access to the community center, regulating access, it wouldn't be fair to charge the same kind of membership rates for the community center, or you may have, less patrons, so you'd still probably bring in less revenue, but now you have extra staff to make sure that you can do social distancing, which is why we never really felt comfortable reopening the community center and the water park until we moved to a later phase where things really became more like guidelines. So we would still, like with our exercise equipment, separate things out, still put the floor tape, still encourage our patrons to do these things, but not have the extra kind of policing capacity. And we have a police officer right now for City Hall as well, just to make sure that social distancing, the mask regulations, all those things are being done. So we're protecting our employees and the residents who are using it. But we can't do that once we open up all these facilities, which is why we were trying to wait to phase 3 where things got back to normal. But this isn't a back to normal phase 3. I think they're adding a phase in addition to the federal plan.
I was just thinking that there would be less risk for an outdoor venue than there would be for an
There is.
indoor
Yeah.
venue. Is that and we're also not running the same amount of programs either. There are no summer camps. There's no kids corner. There's no extended care summer schedule where they do literally from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. So, I mean, there also are a lot less programs that normally run during the summer that aren't running, and for good reason. I'm not suggesting that we should. I'm just saying is that there may be staff members that would be assigned to some of those other programs through the summer that, I'm not sure what I want to say, but they might be assigned to some of those other programs that they're not working, so they might be able to transition over to if we need additional staff at Signal Bay.
You're correct. If we're only opening up the water park and not the community center, you're correct. We would have the staffing capacity.
Right. I was just thinking maybe to open that one because it is seasonal. It would be something that people would enjoy. And because some of the things I mentioned, they're not going on vacations, they're not going to the beach, they're not going to some of these other places because those are thousands of people, and that can be very unsafe. That maybe this is a local option for some of our residents that that being outside would be less risk, and that we could also control the number of people inside.
It would be a first come, first serve. It would not be specifically for Manassas Park residents.
I know,
Because-
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
okay.
phrase it that way,
Yeah.
but just residents in the greater area, just because once some of the people from Manassas and Prince William find out that we're open, there will be, as Laza said, there will be increased demand, like, hey, Manassas Park's open, let's try there because Ben Lomond's closed kind of thing, so. But we could control the volume.
I think it's wiser to go with the original August 1st.
Hey, Jay, I think Jay is on. Jay, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, sir. Just wanted to kind of chime in here. As far as the phase 3 guidelines or parameters, a couple items are a little bit tricky for us with the water park. The biggest concern that I have is mask usage is still required for the lifeguard staff. So with the exception of if they're performing CPR or working with an individual in distress, they are required to wear masks. Given the conditions, that would be very difficult. I think that the risk of heat exhaustion would be pretty prevalent. What we would have to do is we would have to decrease the time up in the chair, and then increase break times, which would cause us to incur a lot of additional staffing levels in order to kind of accommodate that. So that from a cost standpoint and from a staffing standpoint, that would be a little bit of a challenge, just because a lot of our normal, typical traditional staff have looked and gotten other jobs at this point in the season. One of the other parts of the parameters that the governor outlined was spray grounds or activity or play features are not permissible. And the middle section of the water park, that's their activity pool, and those are all considered play features. Those are high touch areas. So those technically in phase 3 are not allowed. So therefore, we would have to keep that section closed during phase 3 in order to remain in compliance with the governor's orders. That area is one of the, probably of the two, is the much more popular amenity within the water park. The lazy river does get usage, but it typically tends to be more teenagers and adults, whereas the activity pool and the play features are predominantly the small children and the parents.
Okay. So-
Madam Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we open the water park, this experience is not going to be too pleasant for the kids with all these limitations. Also, how do you control kids? It's up to the parents, but we're going to put lots of restrictions. So I still agree with the August 1st because it takes lots of control.
Councilmember Sendejas, comment, question?
I just like looking at other states that open early and then have an increase of cases. I'm still kind of hesitant about opening like August 1st. Like, ideally, I would like for us to wait a little bit longer. And also we have some suspicion of some people that, you know, refuse to wear a face mask in our community. So, you know, like, I mean, ideally, we wish that we could have fun outside and have the pool open, but at the same time, you know, we don't want to increase the cases of COVID-19. I think people have this misunderstanding that, you know, you get test positive, you could be asymptomatic, or if you have symptoms, people assume that it's going to be over in 2 weeks. But there's been cases where people are so sick after a month here in our community. So we need to be mindful about, you know, the seriousness of this disease, this virus. We still need to continue educating people about social distancing. But I have noticed that some people are not following that protocol. So, you know, they have this perspective that, you know, if I wear a face mask, it's not going to help me with my house, this or that. So those are my personal perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed, do you have any follow-up on your previous?
Yeah, the other saying financially it doesn't work. I mean, revenue will decrease, expenses will increase this summer. And we're putting city staff in harm's way, the lifeguards. I mean, and not only the city staff, but also the patrons that are using it. I mean, if someone is distressed, I can see two scenarios. Either one, the lifeguard will be hesitant to perform CPR, or two, he performs CPR and then contract, maybe gets the virus from that individual. So there's too many scenarios, and both on a safety standpoint and a financial standpoint, it doesn't make sense for this summer to open up.
Yeah. I think we need to revisit this at our July meeting. I really do. Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay.
I'll bring in updated data on what's happened since the reopening.
Okay. Okay. Any last comments? Okay. Yes, go ahead.
This is regarding the CDC surveys. Kudos to Laszlo for all the information you have been providing, and also Laszlo for making yourself available for yesterday's Telemundo interview that gets to lots of Hispanic audience. Thank you.
You looked good on video.
Yes, very good.
So did you, Miriam.
Yeah, you both did. Okay.
It was great. We were the only locality that was represented.
Okay, we have no closed.
Joan was here on Friday, so both Spanish channels have been focusing on the three circles in the area. So we also want to thank the Spanish media for, you know, taking this seriously and providing, you know, information to our residents so they don't have that fear. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Hector. We have no closed session, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.